Hello, everybody, and welcome to Week 13 of the 2025 NFL season. No, I am not coming to you from the studio. No, I'm not coming to you from the shores of beautiful McLeod Lake. I'm coming to you from the place where most Vikings fans find themselves this week, in the cold and in the dark, set adrift, hopeless. But before I get into that, it was Thanksgiving this week, so this week I am drinking a Wild State Cider apple pie. I don't know if that'll show up. I've had some Wild State stuff before, but this is a limited edition, apparently. Skull, feel it there. I've enjoyed Wild State stuff in the past. This is no exception. I'm actually kind of surprised, but in a pleasant way. When I saw apple pie, I assumed it was going to be a very sweet, very cinnamon-forward beverage. It's definitely more cinnamony, more apple pie-y than some of their other beverages that I've had, but it's not so on the nose that it's, gonna give you a toothache. It's subtle, but refreshing. Nice work, Wild State Brewing, or Wild State Cider. I believe they're out of Duluth. Okay, so as I'm standing here, staring into the snowflakes, there are a lot of people who now, having seen what we've seen from J.J. McCarthy, doing the whole, betcha the Vikings wish they had Sam Darnold back now, huh? Betcha they wish they would have kept Danny Dimes, huh? And while I understand the sentiment, I don't have a lot of patience for it, because I'm old enough to remember last year when the Vikings started the season with Sam Darnold, and everyone's like, well, this is just, if he's still starting in week 6 instead of J.J. McCarthy, I'd be surprised. You don't sign Sam Darnold if you expect to win. He's not a winning quarterback. And then he went to a 14-3 record, and everyone's like, well, you got to sign him. How do you move on from him? And then he laid 2 of the most embarrassing eggs in the final 2 weeks of the Vikings season. And everyone's like, well, he's turned back into a pumpkin. He never was a starter. This is what we've been saying the whole time. This is who he really is. Okay? So then, and I'm not saying no one said this, but very few people had a problem with the Vikings letting him go because of how he finished the season. And when he got his tens of millions of dollars from the Seahawks, it made sense that the Vikings moved on from him. When Danny Dimes got the contract he got with the Colts, it made sense. And again, I heard people saying like, oh, can you believe the Vikings let both of these guys go? The story of the summer regarding Daniel Jones was the Colts were a laughingstock. No one expected them to win 5 games because their quarterback options were Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson, and did they start the season with Joe Flacco? I don't remember. The joke was they had no quarterback. Now, he started the season off really well, and now everyone was like, oh, the Vikings let this guy out of the building, and now he's come back to earth, and it's not that. What I'm driving at here is hindsight's 2020. And maybe the Vikings should have stuck with one of those guys instead of J.J. McCarthy. But we, as fans, didn't know that. And anybody telling you otherwise, unless they have a blog or, say, a YouTube channel where they talked about it, is full of it. We all were ready to... We all believed that anything was better than what we had last year. What's discouraging is that the Vikings knew J.J. McCarthy. KOC has had 2 years to get to know J.J. McCarthy and believe that he can do it, and maybe he still can. I'm not trying to, be a Debbie Downer and say that there's no hope for the boy, but when you're seeing things like going back to 2005, of the 852 quarterbacks or whatever, J.J. McCarthy is 851st in terms of EPA. That is atrocious. That's awful. And I don't understand how the Vikings... I don't understand how he can be that bad. The Vikings had time to work with him. It wasn't like he was this, green guy that they brought in on short notice and he had to start and he had to learn the system. He had 2 years. So it's really, really confounding. And it sucks because I don't know which week it was that I talked about how, the Vikings have Jefferson in his prime, Addison coming into his prime, TJ Hawkinson, Aaron Jones. They put all this money into the offensive line, which granted has not played like one whole game together and whatever. This was going to be the year that they put it all together. They could afford to pay for those pieces on the offensive line and the defensive line because they're going with a young rookie instead of an expensive veteran like Sam Darnold. And we're going to lose Brian Flores eventually, and it felt like this was kind of our window, you know? So here I am out in the dark, in the cold, standing beside the smoldering embers of hope of a season almost assuredly dead. Pardon my poetry. Some hope for this week. Max Brosmer, Minnesota Gopher, undrafted free agent. We can hope that this kid has an electrifying week for him. For him, I hope he lights the league up. I hope he's our Brock Purdy, you know? It's a cool story. Hometown kid gets to suit up for the Vikings. There could not be a much worse spot for him to do it. The Seahawks are on fire this year, offensively, defensively. I've seen people projecting the Vikings to get shut out this week. Not handily, summarily beaten, shut out, because their defense is really good. I think the Vikings left guard and left tackle are either questionable or confirmed out against a Seahawks defensive line that has been stuffing the run and getting after quarterbacks all season. They win on the ground. They win with the passing game with the aforementioned Sam Darnold and Jackson Smith and Jigba. It is not looking like a bright, shining game for the Minnesota Vikings. It could be rough, but hopefully, Max Brosmer, if not a victory, can lead the team to a fun outing. Because obviously we have a lot of pieces here, and it would be cool to see us thrive. Grim. But the snow is beautiful. There's a white blanket over everything. It's that sparkly snow. Get out and enjoy it tomorrow. If the game goes sideways, make a snowman. Skull if you live there. Go Vikings.